Robot Forward Warehousing podcast. And today I'm joined by again a industry veteran, a good friend from Berkshire Grey, Juan. Juan is one of the good friend that I always look up to him for a lot of advice around how to think about the industry, where the industry is heading. So I reached out to him recently. I'm like, Juan, will you be interested for a conversation? And he kindly accepted it. So I really appreciate that. So Juan, why don't you go and do a quick intro about yourself and we'll jump into the conversation.
Happy to, and thank you for that introduction. It's nice, it's kind. Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I'm an industry veteran. In some other ways, I'm new to this industry. My career has spanned from studying in electrical engineering and doing a few years of engineering. I realized that I love the problem-solving part of it, but I didn't want to be an engineer. I didn't want to be like focused on one thing and becoming an expert on only one thing. I love the ambiguity and the uncertainty that is attached to any problems in operations or supply chain, when you don't have like one solution. It's not an equation that gives you a solution and that's what you go with. It's like a million of different variables and you need to take all of them into account and find a compromise solution that works for everyone. So very quickly I switched from engineering to manufacturing and operations, and then into larger supply chain projects. And when you go into that route of supply chain and order fulfillment specifically, and trying to optimize and find optimal solutions to problems, well, technology is a part of that, right? And with the explosion very recently of warehouse technologies and robotics and so forth, it's a really, really interesting space to be.
It's funny how you said it, because I always tell my teams, it's like supply chain and warehousing specifically, there is no right answer. The way I say is there is no right answer. It's all about heuristics, right? It's like you always figure out what's the solution right now in this dynamic which works for you. You work with it. Maybe 2 months down, 2 years down, that solution is an old solution or is a better way to do it. I think it's all about heuristics around the supply chain and the warehousing. So it's a good way to say that the way how you put it. So
let me interrupt, but a big part of that is your own readiness for a solution, right? It's where you are in that journey to becoming better that dictates what the best next step is.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So that's why this is all a matter of, to me, I see this as a matter of continuous improvement, right? It's like whatever step you take, it has to be the good next step in order to take the second one. And if you don't know what the second one is, well, you can get anywhere, right? Any solution will work. There's this famous quote from, I think it's actually from Alice in Wonderland, that says something along the lines that if you don't know where you're going, any path can take you there. Well, it's the same here.
That is true. That is true. I think that's a great segue into my first topic that I wanted to talk to you about, was around adoption of robotics and how to advise companies around, like, hey, when you think about robotics, everyone wants to go for the silver bullet or the magic bullet that they feel like robots can solve the problem for. But I feel like there is a method to this madness, if you will, right? You can't just solve for this everything. So from your side and from your vantage point, with your experience from electrical engineer to all the way to warehouse robotics right now, and within the different ways, I folks don't know, but you're an MIT grad with MBA, MS. So with that education background as well, what do you think is a good advice, or how should I, let's say not advice, let's rephrase that. If I'm a company who wants to solve and adopt robotics, because that's what I see in the market right now, how should I go about it? What should I be thinking? Should I limit myself to robotics, or there are other ways to solve for things? So just help us understand, based on your experience, to a company who doesn't know what to do next when it comes to technology and robotics.
Yeah. Well, first thing that I would say is that if you're a company in the warehouse space, you should be thinking about robotics or some sort of automation. You should be thinking about it. It's coming. You're going to fall behind. You're going to fall behind very quickly if you don't start thinking about automation like now. How to go about it is critical. One thing that you see with technology in general, in this space and on any space, is many people hope and wish that they're going to find one solution on one company, that they're going to buy a product and it's going to solve all my problems. And that doesn't happen. It rarely happens on any industry, and it certainly will not happen in the warehouse automation space. So I guess knowing that is the first step to me. But many people do this. Many people know this already. Like, there's a really good level of understanding of this in the warehousing industry. The first step, or the recommendations that I would give any company that is trying to start testing robotics is, look at your existing processes first, because robotics will not change your process, will make them more efficient. So understand your processes and your bottlenecks and your issues today before you adopt any technology. Like, and good technology companies like Special Grayers and so many others will help you do this, right? If you find a good vendor, which is one of the key into this, they will tell you, listen, you're not ready. And this is why. Nobody, I mean, right now I'm on a technology company trying to sell these products, and no company wants to sell a system that will fail. It's no benefit for us either, right? I don't want to have a Berkshire Grey system out there that is going to fail in 6 months to a year, and it's going to be sent back to me. That doesn't build the reputation and the brand that we want. So first step is recognize where you are, understand what you need, and determine whether you need to change those processes or not. Sometimes it merits the fact that you want to change your process to adopt automation because it's taking you in the step that you want to go. Some other times, some technology companies will force you to change the steps to fit their automation, and that, I think, in general, is a bad way to go. And again, go back to that point of whatever next step you take should be because you know what you want to get, right? That's what's your journey in automation and how you get there. All these technologies are tools, and you should adopt it as tools to make your work more efficient.
Such a great point too. It's a tool. So, it's nothing, do not think more than that. It's a tool. I think that's a message. I feel like they all should adopt it. And I think to your point, and I'm sorry to cut you off there, Juan, I think one of the other thing that I have noticed as I go on my side of the world is like many times the education is also missing on the customer end. They just feel like, and honestly, it's maybe just because they're drinking from a fire hose. Sometimes they tend to mix like picking assist AMRs with, let's say for robotics, picking assist AMRs with like goods to person robots. They really do not know how to both solve for it. What are the pros and cons around it? How invasive it can be to your automation, to your existing workflows, or how not invasive it can be to your existing workflows. I think the education is one of the missing part. I think we all are trying. I think with all the companies, with the marketing collaterals, podcast, blogs, everyone is trying to educate it. But I think and I think that's a challenge I see personally. Like I was talking to one of the customer recently. I was like, what do you guys are trying to solve? The answer was, oh, we want ASRS solution. Like, what are you trying to solve? Right? I was like, question, like that's not the answer, right?
Yep.
You're putting a tool before a problem, and you're not defining a problem to me. And I had to probe a couple of times and rephrase my questions. Like, hey guys, that's great. You think that you want to have a solution which is ASRS solution, but let's talk about the problems that you're trying to solve. Why do you think ASRS is a good solution to a problem that you're facing? So I had to ask that question a couple of times in a different way. Then eventually I got to a problem statement. But I think that's something I think we need to hone on. Like, let's not put cart before the horse. Let's talk about the problem first, and then figure out what solution or what tool can be used.
Yes, I agree with that. And I agree with the part that if I put myself on the shoes of a buyer, that a company that is trying to adopt automation, I have to imagine there's a very confusing time, because there is, on the one hand, you have the old traditional system integrations and companies that have been doing some sort of automation for years. And at the same time, you have all these relatively new startups or the smaller companies that are coming up with robotic solutions and more advanced solutions that some of them are being adopted by the SIs, but not all of them yet. And that is a lot to absorb. Like we were together at Modex, and you walk the floor at Modex, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies offering you solutions. And you have a lot of them. Like one example is track and loading. There were how many companies showing for the first time a track and loading solution at Modex this year? I think it's close to 10 companies.
Yeah.
A year ago, 2 years ago, there were 1 or 2. So, and probably in a year, there might be some new ones, right? It's like all this constant change and constant coming up with solutions is very hard, because when you think, if the minute that a company is ready to adopt automation, well, the sales cycle and defining the solution and and implementing the solution is going to take 9 months if you're lucky, 12 months, a year and a half. And in that period alone, there's going to be new solutions coming to the market. And it's one of those things that at some point you need to commit to one. And you commit, in my book, in 2 instances. One, when you really know, to your point, what is the problem that I'm solving? And I'm finding the right solution. And even beyond that, say for this person that you were talking to, that the solution is indeed an ASRS system. Who do you buy it from? And there's a million companies. So, and I think that's key. And I bring that point because I think it's key not only to find the solution that fits your problem now, but the company that you want to keep working with in the future. Yeah. Like if the implementation goes well, the integration goes well, if the system works the way it should, well, any company will do fine, right? When things are going well, any company is fine. But you want to find a company that is going to work with you when things are not going well. When you realize that the integration, for whatever reason, and whoever faults it is taking longer, or it's being more difficult than what you thought. When you find out that the data that you have is not accurate enough for a robotics to perform the way, all those are problems that you need to solve. And like this, there's many others that you can encounter, right? These are complicated integrations. These are not simple solutions. We are not yet at a point in this technology where it's at a consumer level, in the sense that you can buy something, receive a box, put it together, and use it. We're not there yet. Like warehouses are not there for this yet. So at the end of the day, another thing to keep in mind for people that are looking into automation is not only finding the right solution, but finding the right partner to implement that solution. And I think that's critical.
Yeah, you make a good point, and I think I have lived through a journey where but the vendor was unfortunately on a road to bankruptcy, and then we had to figure out a way how to get out of it, because now the integrator was pretty much our first point of contact, or single point of contact, for spare parts, for software issues, anything around the ASRS solution we had. And then we had to, unfortunately, the SI went through bankruptcy, and then we had to build new relationships with the OEMs, with the software providers, and software was put into a forgot the name, but in a place where you cannot take it away even if the company goes belly up, kind of thing. But anyways, I think escrow. I think it's called escrow. So software was put in escrow account. So overall, I think, to your point, it's very important that, and of course, no one can predict future, but at the same time, at least having some confidence that, yes, my partner will be there, will be able to deliver when the time is right, is important.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the CrowdStrike issue, was, I think, on Friday, is a good reminder that all these companies are somehow connected to each other. Finding a good partner that would integrate into your system, I don't think any warehouse automation company will create a problem the size of the scale of the problem that we saw on Friday. But I've seen it happening, that an entire site goes down for a day because some vendor failed in some updates. And that has happened. And you don't want that to happen, right?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. So I think, going back to our first point, right? How do we help the companies for what advice we can provide. I feel like A is educate yourself. B is make sure that you're not putting a cart before the horse, so you know your problem. You're not going with a tool before you know the problem. I think finally is like the partner, right? Find the right partner who can help you solve for it.
Yeah.
I think.
And I would add one last one to that, actually.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Once you have all that in place, there is this never-ending question of to pilot or not to pilot. Like, how do you start that integration process? I don't think there's a right answer for, like, a blanket answer for everyone in the industry, whether you should pilot first or not. There's companies that goes straight to replacing a piece of equipment that is on the critical path for fulfillment. There's some others that like to try the technology first, and both of them are fine. The one key into all that, or the two key points to all that is, one, make sure that you have the resources. Even if you're doing a pilot, make sure that you have enough resources and enough attention behind the pilot to make it successful. Sometimes pilot fail not because the technology is not ready, but just because people don't have the time, they don't pay the attention. It's a secondary thought, and it's not a priority for anyone. And that's, in my book, is a pity, right? It's potentially a really good piece of technology that can provide value to the company. And just because people are busy on some other things, it falls into a black hole, and nobody really cares. And the other one is, whether you pilot or not, don't pilot, the adoption of these technologies tend to be a stakeholder and a change management problem in the end. It's like you need to find enough executive support on the one hand. This is in most cases a major capital expense, so it has to be enough attention and support from the top. You need to have site leadership behind it, and make sure that you select the site for this adoption, for this technology that will bring benefits to that site, and that site leadership has to be on board. But also the line operators and the people that are going to be using and maintaining the equipment. That feedback to me is critical. It's critical, and many projects fail because the maintenance people shut it down, or the line operators don't like to use it. We've heard the stories about equipment that is sitting there not being used because, well, the operators prefer to keep doing it the old way. and it happens, right? So I don't want to forget, IT is a key component on this. So, and I'm sure there's others, but once you decide what you want to adopt and which company and so forth, make sure that you bring all your stakeholders, understand the incentive for each one of them, and align them, and manage those stakeholders through the process.
That's actually a great point. I think I just wrote it down, like commit to it, right? Like when you say the
Yes.
POC, non-POC, pilot or non-pilot, I think it's whatever you want to do, but commit to it. Like if you're down, you're taking energy from, of course, you take your internal energy of finding the right robot solution fit or automation solution fit. You took the energy from the vendor to help you out there. I think at the end, now commit to it and make sure it be successful. I think to your initial point, Juan, was like, no vendor wants to see their product failing in the field. And I think it's a message that customers should understand. They are ready to work with you, but you got to work with them as well. It's a kind of two-way street, right? It's not a one-way street. It's not like, hey, it's yours, it's your product, solve it. But it's a physical product which will change your process or impact our process. Let's not say change, but it has some influence on your process. You got to be having it's like a two-way street. You need to shake hands to make sure that you're able to solve for it. You can just say it's not a crowd strike kind of effort where like, hey, it's a software, go fix it, and we'll turn on, we'll restart the computers. And I think the last one, change management. Believe it or not, I feel change management has become such a big topic recently. Like I was in one of the conference in Dallas recently, and that topic came again. Like everyone is. So the topic came across like, hey, what are the customers trying to solve today? What are the problems that a lot of enterprise companies are looking to solve today? Are they looking to find right robot solution fit, right digital twin, right? What kind of technologies they're trying to solve? And the answer that I got from a industry veteran was around like, no one is trying to solve those things, Parth. Everyone is trying to figure out change management around it, which was such a like it for a second I was like, what? It took me back, and then when I started parsing through the message and then realized, yeah, actually that's a good point. Like change management is such a big important aspect, and for like any kind of enterprise-wide, if you will, impact of it's automation is not a one siloed conversation anymore. It impacts a lot of different stakeholders. So hence this change management is an important aspect to that.
Yeah. Yeah, and these are, again, the minute that you move beyond a pilot, these are large projects with a lot of stakeholders and a lot on the line. Like, we're talking in operations, to make it more specific, in retail fulfillment. Say that you're a company that are trying to fulfill online orders. Your time to fulfill those orders is critical. The time between you receive the order and you give it to FedEx or anybody to deliver or get it to the customer to that point, it's super critical. And the amount of orders that you can fulfill in a day or give any unit of time is, in most times, your key metric. People are going to evaluate your site or your performance based on how many orders can you fulfill. So when you take this to a person or a group of people that is managing that process, and you ask them to risk it, to implement a technology that could be better, but it could also risk that thing, well, people will think twice. People are naturally more comfortable doing the thing that I know how to do. I've been doing this for 10 years and I know how to do it. And if it goes wrong, I know how to fix it, versus a new piece of technology or a new way of doing things that, well, I don't know what's going to happen. And when it happens, when anything happens, how am I going to fix it? Right. And if you think about it, most of this conversation is not about technology. We're not talking about robotics. We can be talking about anything. It's a management, and how do you lead people to get to that place, and how do you manage this change management process? How do you handle it?
That is so true. Like I think, and one of the things that I'm started to seeing, and I think we confirmed as well in the beginning of this conversation, was like the digital twins are going to be a really good value add, a tool, I would say,
Yes.
for helping with the management of change. They're not going to change the world, but they will definitely help this change management aspect of it, because now as an operator, I can see what my issues could be during peak season versus my low time of the year, and just understand that how my process works. Because in past, at least from my experiences, the way I think about digital, and I would love to see your take as well, is like the way I think about digital twins specifically when it comes to warehouse solutions design is like it helps with two aspects of it. One is like it helps you with the solution design of it. Right now, the what if scenarios that, hey, instead of 6 pack station, what if I have 10 pack stations and I put in an end of line conveyor? How does that impact my operations? And if I have an ASRS connected to unit sorter, how does that operation look like? Can I use a G2P solution? All those calculations, as of right now, in my understanding, are done through an Excel file, right? They pretty much Excel, put in the database, put in the UPHs and figure out what it looks like. But I think going to digital twin or some kind of spatially accurate representation of your warehouse and letting you play with it using some physics-based algorithm, it can help you understand what your solution design would be. And once you've done that solution design, it has that qualitative aspect to it, which is around like change management. Because as an operator now, I can see during peak times, I have to find 10 pack stations because I will run out of work or I will have a lot of work built up. Those scenario modeling also helps with the change management. So that's a qualitative aspect of it that I feel that there is value to digital twin. And as overall with the change management, that is a tool that people are leaning towards, and industry as an industry should lean towards. What are your thoughts on that?
I think within the scope or within the space of upcoming technologies, digital twins to me are top of mind, in the sense that I think they're the first one that are going to make an impact in this industry. Like when you think about AI, and everyone talks about AI and humanoid robots, and everyone is talking about humanoids, I think digital twins will make a space into the industry sooner than those other technologies, even when people don't talk too much about it. I wanna differentiate two things, right? On the one hand, you have simulation, and every company, or most companies that are adopting a robotics technology solution for warehouse automation should be doing simulation before they deploy it. I think it's super helpful. It increases your level of confidence that solution will work in all these potential scenarios, peak or not peak, or rush one day, or what happens when one piece of equipment fails, because sooner or later they're going to fail. So how do you adapt to those situations is really helpful. And as you mentioned, a lot of the early solutioning is done using Excel and averages and so forth, and it's okay. It will get you to a place where you feel that, yes, the solution will do what I want, but you cannot simulate every scenario in itself. Like, not there's a level of confidence that you need. So simulation, yes, but digital twins to me is a step beyond that, right? It's a simulation, as in real-time simulation, if you will, a representation of what's happening. That takes a lot of work and a lot of investment. You wanna do it carefully, because the fidelity that you need for that digital twin, it's important if it's going to inform decisions that you're going to make. But I think there's a lot of really good. I'm not an expert on this by any means. I just think that has real life implications and impact on warehouses, as opposed to things that I think are going to take a little longer, right? AI is a big bucket of many different things. There's companies that have been doing AI for years, right? Look no further. AI, BG has been doing AI for years, and we are using that in our robotic pick arms for many years. But the world has changed a lot in the last couple of years. Like, ChatGPT is not 2 years old yet. It's younger than my kid, and my kid doesn't speak yet. So we forget that these technologies that we're also used to, they're very nascent. They're very early on. And there's a lot of companies trying to find uses of that technology in warehousing. And I think there's a lot of potential. It's very promising, but it's not there yet, right? So far, everything that I can see makes for really good demos, but I don't know if anybody is actually using that in production. And that takes this little leap of, do I trust this technology enough? And because it's one thing that it can deliver in all these scenarios and do the simulation, it also brings this idea that, AI, if you're going to use AI for everything, it's going to take computing power.
Yeah.
And that computing power has to be somewhere. And connectivity to the internet and some other things. And not all warehouses are like top of the, you know what I mean? Similar with humanoids, right? It's a super interesting technology. I can see the pros and cons. Will they find a place in the warehouse? I'm not sure. I don't know. It's a very tough question.
Thanks for touching on that, because that's a similar thought that I've been having as well. I think, and maybe this is still an idea that I'm still brewing and trying to put together in a better organized form. But I feel like we designed warehouses which were very conducive to the human behavior. So now we are trying to replace that human with a humanoid, to be honest, like moving totes or any kind of places where humans were involved. Now we're trying to put humanoid, but I feel like we have to change it other way. We have to redesign the whole warehouse and try to put humans where we really do not, any kind of automation or robotics cannot really help. That's when we think about humanoid. I think, again, as I said, I'm trying to come up with an idea, but I think we are going wrong ways. Like, I'm thinking about automobile assembly lines, right? You don't go and you have a line, you design a warehouse or design a production line which is around the production of the machines of cars, and humans are added where the where the robots cannot really help. I think we need to, on those similar lines, I think we need to think about warehousing as well, that we only add humans where robots cannot reach, but we start with that approach of, well, hey, I'm going to design a warehouse which has robots as my primary problem solution, if you will, and then put in humans wherever I cannot use a robot.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, as I was saying before, I see the pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
There is a very compelling argument to me in the idea that the warehouse and beyond the warehouse, the world infrastructure has been developed around the human form. So if you can find, if you can find robot, if you can design a product that will take the place of a human and work in the spaces where the human can work, well, you don't need to change the infrastructure around it. And that's a very compelling argument. At the same time, most of the PhDs and very specialized people in robotics that have been doing robotics forever, they tend to fall into the idea, this old concept that the robots should be specialized, not generalists. Because you do a better job and a simpler job, and it's a cheaper product if you design it to do one thing and to do it really well. Nobody can. I don't want to predict the future. I think it's silly. Yeah. I can see both pros and cons, right? At the same time, when you talk to anyone in the warehouse industry, one of the top of mind after labor, which is probably top of mind for everyone, the next big challenge is density and utilization of the vertical space. And if you're gonna limit your automation to the 6-7 feet that a humanoid can work, well, right there you have a challenge, right?
That's true. That is true. And that actually, so that let me ask a question on that now. If I think about it, like, so we always talk about at least industry overall in last 4 or 5 years is always talking about picking automation around picking solutions, right? Because we all know 55 to 65% goes into that as a labor cost. So we have a lot of solutions around picking, which includes high density picking as well, like a good 2% solution or ASRS solution, and as well as like pick assist AMRs around that. So, but I think let's go beyond that. Like, let's say I'm a warehouse, I'm a retail company, retail warehouse, doing omnichannel fulfillment. I have solved my picking problem with using some kind of ASRS solution. Or what should I think next? What should I try to solve next?
That's an interesting question. Before I jump into that or try to think about that, I would say that if you're a retail fulfillment company and you have an ASRS, you haven't really solved your picking problem, right?
Oh,
yes. The picking problem has two very, very, very different aspects. One is the transport and the other one is the picking.
Correct. Yeah.
And the transport part is easy to automate or easier to automate and tends to capture most of the benefits, because most of the inefficiencies in the picking process is in the walk-in and so forth. So yes, you have made your picking process a lot more efficient, because now your pickers stand in a position and they just pick. There is a second path to that, or a second step to that, which is actually automating the picking. And we can talk about that, but you haven't fully solved your picking problem, right? It's not fully automated. However, you make it efficient enough, probably, that is not top of mind for you anymore. Like, you start looking at your warehouse processes and where the money goes and where the inefficiencies are. And when you start with a manual warehouse, yes, picking will be top of the line, top of the list. And as you said, it's probably going to be 50, 60% of the labor costs. Once you implement an ASRS, well, that will drop. And the question is, in the thinking process should be like, I make that list again, what is top of the list again, after implementing some automation. And you and I have talked about it. I think packing is probably the next one. But that also is dependent, in my mind, on how you implemented the picking and your specific situation. Meaning, packing can be as simple as printing a packing slip and closing a box if you're doing picking in a given way, or it can involve order consolidation from items that are picked from your SRS and items that are picked from somewhere else, because potentially for your company, a large share of your SKUs are not in a position where you can automate it because they don't fit on an SRS system. And do you need order consolidation downstream? So, and that's obviously a critical part. If you're going to implement some picking solutions, like actual picking, not the transport part, what is the eligibility of your items and what are you going to do with the other items? So I'm diverging a little bit, but I think there's a lot that you can say about this solving the picking problem that is not fully solved yet.
It's interesting. I think as you said, right? And I always thought, I think maybe just the 3PL mind of mine was always focused on like packaging stuff, because as soon as we solve, like improve, let's say not complete automating picking, as soon as I had improved my picking, I'll go back to, and I think that's something that I think everyone should do or continue doing if they're doing it, is like go to your financial P&L of your warehouse every month, right, and see which place has the biggest cost, right? Sometimes the cost doesn't come from automation or robotic. Cost saving can come from some just a simple procurement strategy change as well, right? So, but if we are talking about automation and robotics, I found in my, at least in my previous world, which was around 3PL, was like as soon as we solve or improve picking, we would go to the packaging line, because that's where we see a lot of time being spent. But you also make a very good point that sometimes packaging could be a very simple solution as well, where you don't need a lot of complexity around it. So it's funny enough, but I feel like we are going to our initial point that it's heuristics, right? Depending on your warehouse, what you're trying to solve, it depends where you start and where you want to go the next step. Because I feel like for someone who is doing a lot of, let's say, parcels, they might need sortation after, as soon as they solve for picking or improve picking. They're like, hey, let's not worry about packaging. Let's talk about sortation at the end of the line or something around those lines. So yeah, it's funny. Like the world of warehousing is so much. Again, I come back to your point, like where you start and where you want to go.
Yes. And how do you approach each one of the steps along the way, right? We talk a bit about pilot or not pilots, but another concept that to me is interesting is I tend to see, and I'm going to exaggerate just to make the point, I tend to see two kinds of companies. On the one hand, you have the companies that are looking at each automation project as an isolated unit. So I'm trying to do this on this site, and it has to pay back in 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, whatever the number is. So I need a solution that will provide benefits on this specific space, and I'm not accounting for anything else. And on the other hand, you see companies that are trying to use these projects to truly learn into something bigger and say, this is a technology that has potential. I'm going to test this, even if the payback for this particular instance is not good, because I know I can later implement it somewhere else, maybe at a different scale, and get the benefits. But I want to prove that it works the way it works. And some of those companies actually test the same solution with 2 or 3 different vendors, right? To also try to understand how the vendors work and which company I'm going to use, despite just that one specific solution today. Because this is technology that continues to change pretty quickly, right? Just think about the last Modex that we went to, or 2 Modex ago, like it was 4 years ago. The array of solutions that you have today is very different. The offering that you have from companies in Asia, in the US, is very different. So the space will continue to evolve. So find a partner, but also learn about the technologies and what they can really do for you.
That is true.
So in that space, I think the companies that are focusing on, I'm just automating this to make this process better, and it has to pay back today, well, they're going to benefit in the short term, but they're leaving money on the table for the long term.
That's a great point. That's a great point, Juan. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the conversation, Juan. It was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation. We are all over around 40 minutes now, so you can see it was. I enjoyed the conversation, and I feel like the audience will enjoy as well. So thank you, Juan, for taking time and providing insights on it. And any departing thoughts?
No, I think I want to thank you for the opportunity. This is great. This has been fun.
Yeah, awesome.
I can talk about warehouse automation for hours. So I'm happy that we keep it to like 35, 40 minutes or whatever it was.
No, man. Yeah, I know that we can talk about it for sure. I think I remember our days at Modex after on Monday nights. I remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you all found the same insightful conversation as I did, and we'll see you next time.
Excellent.
You have been listening to Robot Forward Warehousing Podcast with Paul Pithan. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the show on your favorite podcast player. If you like what you heard, please rate us and help us reach more warehouse robotics practitioners. Thank you for listening. Until next time.